because he's a cousin that I respect and always want to give support to, he bullied me to read today and not to write. So I'm going to be reading an extract from the book, which is an extract in Xhosa. But before that, I think congratulations are in order to him, the new author. Mzala, I just want to say to you, well done, congratulations. When I launched my fourth book, actually, Bakubev, last year in July, at Kamata, and in December at Monte Casino, he was there. And as we were chatting, he said to me, Mzala, I am inspired. And I'm going to be working on something very soon to follow your steps. And today we are here because of that inspiration. And I want to say to you, Mzala, well done again and congratulations. I'm sure many of you know the writer, Dr. John Tibane, who's written a lot of books, one of them being Be Inspired, or Get Inspired, or Get Expired. And Mzala chose to get inspired and did something about it. Well done, Mkev. And I would like just to say that asingobazala nje basemoyeni, but singabazala bakwenene true cousins, our mothers, our sisters, bezalwa kwaDabane. Ukhona umuntu lapha endlini angiya umsekeli Mguda, omele iKHALA kwaMguda oDabane. And I would like to say ndiyabona into ba Judge Mlambo ikhona inkenqe ekhoyo pha emakhwemteni koDabane that makes us abazukulwana babo want to put pen to paper and tell the stories that need to be told. And so, Dabane Msekeli, please pass and give our gratitude to the Mguda family for the genes they put in us, the DNA we have that makes us to want to tell our stories through writing. Having said that, I would like to as well just say what Judge Mlambo was saying as we're chatting here, that what Mzala has done is so important and profound. If we don't tell our stories, Dr. Maduna, somebody's going to come and tell them from their perspective. We need to tell these stories that are so rich and profound that we walk with all the time. My last book is saying your origins do not determine your destiny. And that book is telling the story of an African man, that we come from nowhere, from very, very difficult struggles. Our parents, most of them not having gone to school, struggled in so many ways, including, or mainly, defeated the apartheid, cruel endeavors, and make sure that their children will be educated. Naba, Ostembele, namhlanje, nabo Judge, not Dr. Maduna, apha namhlanje sibabona, bezalwa ngabazali, bafana namzali ukhona ngayo le ncwadi that we are going to hear about, and as you read the book further. And so, let us not be deterred by anything. Let us make sure that we tell these stories, but not orally, but put pen to paper and make sure that they are there. So that the legacies that are so important, sihamba nazo, singafi nazo. Having said that, I would like to then read what I've been asked to read. A brief context to it is it's a situation of a mother who is talking to her son in a church on one terrible day when this son was a policeman who had turned against society and became part of the system and was so jealous of his brother, Mkolisi. His name was Shadrach Yena, Ipoliseli, and he followed him until where the brother, who was a freedom fighter, Mkolisi, was about to get married to a woman that he was jealous about. And because of his jealousy, which we have seen in so many homes, where siblings, sometimes infiltrated by the system, would turn against one another and do strange things to the extent of killing other siblings and the mother or the parents for that matter. And So what I'm going to be reading is a very, very gruesome moment where a mother was about to be killed by umntwana wakhe owayelipolisa, who was jealous of the brother, who was a freedom fighter, who had been used and infiltrated by the system and was really, really part of the system and was doing terrible things. That's the context. So please sit back and listen to this very, very horrible story. Mabel, who was the mother to these two sons, sighed wearily and hauled herself to her feet. She stood face to face with Shadrach, that's the policeman's son, tears running down her cheeks. Speaking in isiXhosa, she said, and I quote, "Mhla ndalahlekelwa ngunyana wam, yayingumhla unyana wam esiya kwingqeqesho yamapolisa oMzantsi Afrika. Mhla ungena ekhayeni lethu unxibe isinxibo samapolisa, ibheji nompu. Lo mhla wandinika umbono oboniswa kwincwadi kaMateyu isahluko sesine ukusuka kuverse 1 to 11, apho unyana kaThixo wayelingwa ngumtyholi. Akazange anikezele. Ndithi kuwe ngalo mzuzu ukuba kwesaa sikolo samapolisa wafundiswa ukungahloniphi unyoko nokuthi ungathabatha ubomi bakhe ngokuthanda kwakho, oyena mntu ofanele ukuphela ezandleni zakho ndim lo. Tsala ke nyana, tsala, khula umpu wakho, dubula. Uze wazi oku, nokuba ndihamba ethunzini lokufa andiyiko ikabubi, ngoba unam yena, undilungisela isithebe phambi kwabandezeli bam. Uyithambisa ngeoli intloko yam, indebe yam iyaphalala. Ndohlala endlini yenkosi zonke imini zokuphila kwam." Now, to those who don't understand Xhosa, Shadrach apparently, after listening to her mother, he was taken aback despite his horrible ways and way of doing things, because by that time, all the other police had reinforced him, and they were there to make sure that they took the brother and the mother to jail as terrorists. And by that time, he had shot the woman that was supposed to be married by the brother, Mxolisi, and she was dying, lying there in that church. And the reverend who was about to marry them was made to be part of ukubopha, ukufaka ama-handboy, this Mxolisi chap, umnina wepolisa eli. Now, the sergeant says to him, his senior, Shadrach, ulithi kuye, "What does this woman say? I can't understand, this was of course an Afrikaner. Tell me what she is saying, but I am sure whatever she is saying is something that is also along the lines of terrorism. She must also go to jail." He saying this to this son of this mother who was about to shoot. But after all these words, he didn't shoot, because those words, they penetrated him deeply and made him not to pull the trigger to kill the mother whom he was prepared to shoot at that moment and kill her and the brother and the wife to be, that is his sister-in-law to be. That's how bad the apartheid system was, as depicted in this book told by Ustembele Khala. Now, it says in English what I was reading. "The biggest curse to this family was when I lost my child, the South African Police Academy. The day you defiled the family and came into the house wearing police uniform, a badge and a gun. That incident brought to mind the experience of Jesus Christ when he encountered the devil in the wilderness. This is captured in Matthew 4, verses 1 to 11. She further said that if at the police academy I was taught to disrespect my mother and decide how and when she dies, I should go ahead and pull the trigger and kill her, his mother that is. She is not scared." Then she went on to quote from Psalm 23, "Even though I walk in the shadow of the valley of death, I fear no evil." Close quote. So that's what I was asked to read this evening, so that you can be left looking forward to read this book and hear more about this story, because things that are being said here are gruesome, but they are very honest and profound. And as Dr. Maduna was saying, they need to be said. We need to know about them so that we know where we come from as we strive and go forward, trying to carve a better future for us and for our children. Thank you very much for now.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Jantile. And just before you go, you know, I can't imagine the pain of a mother dealing with, you know, the jealousy between her children. But, you know, I'd like to ask you to just relate Psalm 23 to the situation of the 70s, and just to also say how it carried our people.
Thank you, Program Director. When I read this extract from the book this afternoon, Mzala didn't tell me about it. But it resonated so much with me because, as Msekeli will agree as well, my cousin, our cousin, we grew up with this psalm as well. See reciter during our prayer sessions in the evenings. And our parents believed so much to this psalmist with David, especially this psalm, Psalm 23. And that verse 4 that is quoted here, even though I tread in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall not fear, for thou art with me. That verse 4 is so important because these mothers, like Mabel, the mother to Mkolisi and to Shadrach, were strengthened and given courage by such verses from the Bible, especially this Psalm 23, because so much was happening. They had to have something which was going to give them hope to move on, to walk on and know that even though those shadows of death, which came in so many ways, were there in their lives, they were not going to be scared by anything, because they knew that the shepherd, the Lord, the shepherd, Jesus, was there with them to make sure that he protects them in whatever they do. So yes, one of the things that sustained our parents during those difficult times, besides everything else, it was the trust and belief in God and knowing that if he is with us, nobody can be against us. And yes, I do believe that it is
Thank
important.
you. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Jantile.
Thank you
And that
very
is
much.
true. With God before us, who can be against us? Indeed. I would like to now recognize and welcome the following dignitaries. Head of Department, Education in the Free State, Advocate Tsuarelo Malakwane. Head of Department for Arts, Head of Department for Arts, Sports and Recreation in the Free State, Mr. Stanley Malope. Advisor to the Minister of Human Settlement, Mr. Tami Gaplaki. Advisor to the Premier of Gauteng, Mr. Mtutuzi Mpata. Miss Antoinette Sitole, formerly known as Antoinette Peterson. At this stage, I have the pleasure and privilege in introducing one of the most recognized faces in the world. I welcome Miss Antoinette Sitole, previously known as Antoinette Peterson, the legendary sister to Hector Peterson. Please give me a warm welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, evening, and doctors, professors, judges, thank you very much for inviting me this night. I'm going to read an extract on this lovely book, even though I haven't read it all. And I will start by just reading, and then later I can elaborate. Or maybe questions will be asked so that I can answer. Soweto erupted by 10 a.m. on June 16, 1976. The police had shot dead Hector Peterson, a 13-year-old schoolboy, not far from where Peterson's life was prematurely snuffed out by a police bullet. Another 14-year-old Hastings Ndlovu lay dead, killed by the same police bullies. The green irony of this killing was that Hastings Ndlovu was the son of the Falcon Ndlovu, headmaster of Bele Higher Primary School in Orlando West. Where the children's revolt against Africans started. It was another day of shame for South Africa. Hector Peterson's sister, Antoinette, and Buisa Makubu carried the lifeless body of Hector, demanding answers from the cops after the butchery of the two teenage schoolboys. The situation got out of hand or out of control. The ivory towers were shaken. In biblical parlance, it was the Battle of Ela Valley. Never before had such an arrogant, self-righteous, despotic Goliath have been scared and frightened by the little David with a pebble in his slingshot. Tear gas failed to scare the children away. They exposed their young chests to the police bullets and brutality. They were shot but kept charging until Goliath retreated in disarray and confusion. The famine in the cold blood of unarmed school children continued. They were purposeful in their action, and the intention was clearly to kill. On that same fateful day, they shot and maimed a 16-year-old girl, Poppy Buthelezi, who was shot in the right breast, and it was instantly paralyzed, and she died some years later as a paraplegic. The rage and the hate were palpable. The apartheid government had never thought that after they killed unarmed marchers in Sharpeville 16 years earlier, the Kafirs would not have learned their lessons and were still unaware of the ruthless and unbating power in the hands of the state. The children of 1976 had seen and witnessed the ruthlessness of the system. They had seen the police harassing and humiliating their parents. Thank you very much. This is the abstract from this lovely book.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. So I'd just like to, pose a few questions to you. Indeed, that was profound. And as the famous Hector Peterson picture, English, has adorned world stages and walls of fame, to you, what does his sacrifice represent?
As a black child, yes, we knew that we were oppressed, but his sacrifice and others, actually that showed us we were violated, we never had rights, there were no human rights. So the sacrifice was, yes, he died and the others, because we were taken as nothing. We had no say, we had nothing. Everything that was done to us, it was bullied, okay? So we never had strength. But now, because some people died and their blood has cleansed the apartheid, that means he did not die in vain. And not only him, all those who took part.
Thank you very much for that. And lastly, I'd also just like to ask, one question that you probably asked quite often is, when you left home that morning, what were your expected outcomes of the march?
Actually, we were very, very excited, Remember that during the apartheid era, when you are a student, you make sure that you listen to your parents, you listen to your teachers, okay? So being out there, because there were no teachers, no parents telling us what to do and what not to do, so obvious we felt like, oh, this is good. We finally took a stand. So I felt very good. I don't know about the others, but I felt very good that we managed to take a stand to fight for our rights, whether it's in education or just a way of living. So I was very, very excited. I don't even regret that day.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. You know, June 16 is a day where we still commemorate our heroes and is a day that we still hold so dearly to our hearts. You know, Mrs. Tole said something that stuck to me, that when she woke up that morning, they were excited. And it reminded me of the fees must fall movement. I was like, yeah, I'm for school fees. we're there, you know, and we still to this day sing the struggle songs. Senzenina. And I just wanted to mention that. Thank you so much, Mrs. Sutole. All right, I'd like to continue the evening. I hope you're all enjoying your dinner. Is it good? Chicken, beef, fish? Chicken or beef? Okay. Let's proceed with the evening tonight. My list still continues, and I'd still like to recognize and warmly welcome more dignitaries that are present with us tonight. And Mr. Kehla Tembu, former PepsiCo South Africa CEO, Advocate Jabu Mabaso, Mr. Sandile Memela, spokesperson of SARS, and an experienced author himself and former editor. If you haven't paid your taxes, you know who to speak to. Mr. Dominic Shimave, SAFA spokesperson and former sport editor at City Press. Mr. Michael Matsubane, former at Wilgers. Mr. Horatio Muchwadi, former sport editor at Sowetan newspaper. Mr. Malebu Pare, head of Newsroom Africa. If he is in the room, I hope I'm doing great because, you know, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Mr. Adze Uga, director of Ismaya, many movies and many soapies. Now, one thing I wanted to say to Mr. Uga is, one thing that you're probably all wondering, what actually happened to Sengwai? Did he actually come to life? He come back? Is it real? Is he coming back? Mr. Soli Matabela, chairman of the Achievers Club. Mr. Pat Mtiba, chairman of the Wednesday Golf School. And Miss Felicia, the first lady of the Wednesday Golf School. First lady. Maybe you should wave. Maybe she should just give us a wave. We love having strong women in the house. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to recognize and welcome, while I call him to stage, Mr. Dan Moyo, former CEO of SASCOC and a former Robben Island prisoner. Sir, please join me on stage. I would love to take the podium to tell you about my journey in Robben Island, but I was not there. So we'll just wait for you, sir. Thank you. Please, may we respect our speakers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Program Director. Right. Program Director, you'll forgive me. I'm not going to be actually observing any protocols because all that has been done by the previous speakers. But just to thank my friend and comrade, Ustembele, Stakes, KHALA, ukuthi usihlanganisile namhlanje. Ngiyajabula nje mangibona labantu abahlangene la. Ngoba kukhona amabanjwa aphume eRobben Island nakwamanye amajele la eSouth Africa lapho bekuvalelwe khona bonke abalweli benkululeko. Then kukhona amajaji no ngiyayimenshina lento lena ngoba ibaluleke kabi. Umuntu osivulele la inkulumo uJaji uCameron ukhulume into enhle la ukuthi ke ihistory yethu complex kabi. Ungabeka narrative yakho use Zimbabwe, use Namibia, use Nicaragua, use Cuba, use Russia, use China. Okuyinto eyenzakalayo njengamanje. Robben Island angeke uzuyithola incwadi ebhalwe ngomunye ababese Robben Island. Ikhona i-bookstore lapha abantu abake baya khona ngiyabona bayibona. Kodwa namhlanje ngithi I'm very proud that at least we will have one of the books ezibhalwe ngumuntu obeka se Robben Island. Long Walk to Freedom azange ibhalwe ngumuntu ose Robben Island lo. Ayikho Robben Island. Long Walk to Freedom never ngeke uzuyithole the first copy yayo. Iyabhalwa la eSouth Africa ya publish. Kuzoba yiyo leyo kuqala. Elanda umlando wabantu abebaphila lapha kule ndawo. The citizens abase Robben Island laba iFIFA yaba recognizer ngokubanikeza indondo yeMakana Football Association. Dr. Danny Jordan angazi noma ukhona la. Le ndondo lesanikezwa yona eyethu nabo stakes ithi sasidlala ibhola lapha. Kodwa abantu ababesivulele ekucala yilabo abangena ngo1963 lapha. Thina sifike in the 80s and 70s. Ijele sela change. Amajaji asigweba amanye asendlulila komkhulu. Lama jaji engiwavumayo enginawo namhlanje yilawa ayeqindezelwe njengathi awayengekho kuleya bench. Ayengafunwa ngamabhunu. Angeke ngisawulanda lo mlando loyo. Ngithi ngiproud ngoba namhlanje bakhonile kuba nathi namhlanje to share with uComrade uStakes nefamily yakhe nathi sonke the brother family about our struggle. It's a long struggle. And it's distorted by many writers around the world. They write about us. They've never read the stories that are told by us. Robben Island yazi abantu abaningi abazi ukuthi besine language yethu. Sa develop language yokukhuluma ngoba sibona ukuthi amabhunu asicindezela sikwazi ukwenza ezinye izinto. Uma ngikhuluma noStakes esebenza ekitchen ngithi kuye impukane eseyindlulile uyazi ukuthi ngikhuluma ngani mangithi impukane indlulile. Uma ubra Xolo uJoe enginikeza iphepha elincane athi Dan ngoba wena usebenza lapha eboiler ekitchen nguwe okwazi ungena wonke ama section ngiyenza ifault kwiline ekhipha steam siya ku wonke ama kitchen alapha eRobben Island so that ngizothola ichance yokuya lapha ngiyoshiya impukane. Iyo ke lengizonifundela yona. Chapter 18 udila ngesimo esasikuso masisuka la in the mainland. Wemva kokugwetshwa ngamajaji wamabhunu besinikeza izigwebo zokuba siye eRobben Island. Besisuka from various prisons different because of our regions esiphuma kuwo mawuphuma eKZN usukela kwelinye ijele mawuphuma ePort Elizabeth usuka kwelinye ijele. Thina nabo Stakes sasuka eBethal ngoba basiletha la eLeopold maximum prison. For the first time Stakes azange ngutshele ngabona lo ukhona le ndoda lebebiza uJames Bond. Abaningi abamazi babezwa ngayo. Wayehlala nathi emakhulukuthu lapha eLeopold prison. Nomunye ubaba bebethu umzobe bekenza 84 years. Waye belonga to Umsomi gang. Ngihlangane naye khona lapha yana. uye kuphela oye-allowed ukuthi ahlangane nathi esilethela ama-newspaper makafanele azodeliver amabhunu ayemthembile ukuthi uyezasinikeza yonke into kodwa bebangamazi ukuthi no usejikile usebenza nathi hayi leyo elinye ilanga uStex uzoyikhuluma kwelinye incwadi-ke elandelayo. They arrived on Robben Island in the middle of June. They drove early in the morning from Lioko prison in a fortified prison truck. Neyazi leba ifana ne-4 room. Leba di funketang. Bongene ngaphakathi awuboni ngaphandle nix. Inezifo inama-grill ngaphakathi angeke uzuphume lapha. Banifake namabhakede ukuzinceda ngaphakathi. Yebo. Angazi noma uStex uyayisho lento leyo nala. They were under the most heavily armed escort. Can you imagine? 1,200 kilometers from Johannesburg to Cape Town. There were 2 unmarked vehicles in the front of the truck with 4 armed escorts in each, and 2 more at the back with the same number of occupants, also heavily armed. Can you imagine? We were not armed when we were transported. But these guys were heavily armed because they never knew what will happen on our way to Cape Town. The truck stopped once to refuel. Through the windows at the back of the truck, which were wired with mesh and barbed wire on the outside to prevent the person inside stretching his arm to reach outside, he could see all the occupants of the escorting cars jumping out of their vehicles and taking positions. Those who know how an escort of prisoners happens, they will understand that situation. And once they take their positions, they start brandishing their big guns and rifles so that they make sure that no one even comes nearer. It was very clear to the prisoners that any attempt to escape will end tragically. The truck came to a stop somewhere after a long time from the point where they refueled again. He could see the same people jumping out to different positions. This time the truck was opened at the back. 4 heavily armed men stood, 2 on each side of the truck. The prisoners were instructed to come out, move in between armed men, dragging their chains. I forgot to mention that while you are transported behind the truck, you were chained, both legs. Banfaka uzankosi. Ilanga justice umlambo uzantshela ukuthi legama lithi uzankosi lisukaphi. Uzobatshela kulilanga njani. Hayi mhlambe ngizayibeka ngelinye ilanga leyo masilontshe enye ibook no Steaks. Lesabe shakoni ama biographies of all the prisoners from 1963 to 1990. Nama families wabo. The prisoners were then instructed to come out, move in between the armed men, dragging their chains. They walked through an open grill door and straight into the prison cell. Tim lightened their mood by suggesting that they consider themselves luminaries who received an armed guard of honor. They laughed. You know, you never knew that freedom fighters one day they will get that armed guard of honor from the oppressor. Because can you imagine these guys with their arms like that, pointing at you, but you are moving in between and they're standing guard in between. This was one of making that light moment by Comrade Tim. For the first time in many months, Mxolisi was in a communal cell with his comrades. Inside the cell, the chains were removed from them and they spent the night there. Supper was served and they were given porridge, gravy and meat, vegetables, and they were served proper coffee. The food was decent, fresh and warm, and was bought from a cafe takeaway. This is Ranongama Portuguese. They ate but did not sleep out of excitement. They talked the whole night. Very early the following morning, the doors opened. Breakfast was served. Each one of them was given a takeaway package. We served as lunch. The truck only stooped to refuel and nothing else. They arrived in the Cape Town docking yard area in the late afternoon. They were hurried upstairs to a cell facing the sea with one tiny window high up the wall and locked inside. 30 minutes later, they were fetched and directed to a boat whose name was Dias. How many of you have ever heard about the name Dias? Those who have done history at school. Can you raise your hand? Do you still remember the one of the boats or ship that was used by Jan van Riebeeck and Cahoots? There was a Dias there. Yeah. The weather was very unkind. Those who have been to Cape Town, they know about that. Very cold, almost freezing and windy. They learned later that the timing of ferrying prisoners to the island was designed to serve as part of the psychological onslaught to break the prisoners down, attack their resilience, drive through a message of helplessness. You know, obviously, when you arrive there, we had that smell of the sea weed. Immediately you think about this thing that, hey, the Mandelas, the Sobukwes, and the Jeff Semulas, 1963. Now it's 1978. What, 77 or something? Can you imagine? 10 years, 15 years, you are now there. Elders never spoke about this. They don't know anything about Robben Island. Now the smell of that seaweed. They were directed to the bottom compartment of the boat, the Dias. The level above them, they were private people. Those were families of the warders and the personnel that worked for the prison service. All white, obviously. There were no black warders. There were no maids or helpers in Robben Island. The boat started sailing deeper into the sea. They were in chains in the dingy bottom of the compartment of the boat. Everything down there was steel and iron. They sat on the steel benches. Very cold. And the small round windows of the boat. Thola nje chance yokubheka kancane ubheke ngaphandle ulwandle but thola ukuthi amanzi olwandle ahamba la awukhona ukubona nje ngaphandle. They sat on the steel benches and the small round windows of the boat gave them a sea view partially submerged in the water. This was a dreadful experience for Mxolisi, who had never been on the boat before. let alone to be at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. He remembered that he could not swim. You only remember then that if anything happens, but most important, he remembered he had to restore his relationship with God. Niyazi vele mase kunzima wonke umuntu usuka cabanga vele ukuthi mangiguce phansi ngithandaza ngoba anything can happen. Nakumxolisi kwenzeka njalo nawo wonke ama comrades bewalapha. This was a dreadful experience for Mxolisi. Mxolisi grew up in a religious family. Every Sunday they all went to church and were active in church affairs. When he got arrested, he was angry with God, feeling a sense of betrayal. He believed that with his divine scorecard, he should have been able to walk through furnace of fire heated 7 times hotter than the normal, like where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Bible, with no harm to himself. I'm referring to the Sundown Street coaches. Now I'm referring to the really Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Umxolisi bekacabanga ukuthi naye ngoba wayephuma kwifamily yamakholwa uma efika lapha eRobben Island ufanele kuvuleka iminyango nje ayenze intando yakhe ahambe abaleke lapha esikepeni kodwa kuzange kwenzeke njalo. When he got arrested, he was angry with God. That's it. He believed that the doors of the prison will flung open and the angels will show him the way out. When that did not happen, he suspended his relationship with God. I'll tell you, comrades, what Stakes is telling here is true. Very little was done in terms of following up with religion when we were there. Very few comrades used to go to church on Sundays. The only one who used to go there, Ubabu Vuisile, naye bekaya ngoba bebamnikeza ukudla laba majuda. Bekaya on Fridays. Ngoba yazi ukuthi bazomphakela. Ezenezinto esingazitholi lapha eIsland so that naye abonakala ukuthi udla into ezinice. Kodwa esikhathini esiningi ama comrades bebangasayi emasontweni obayothandaza. Nibuza ucomrade uTerra Likota leader eCope. Uye umuntu wazama ukuthi uzama inkonzonyana yakhe yafa. Kodwa yabulawa yimi nomunye ucomrade bathi saqala i-ballroom dance. Savala iholo, safaka music. The gale storm mounted mountains of angry waves came towards Dayas while it was floating from the mainland dock. 8 prisoners in chains looked out through the windows below. The tragic end of their lives was near, and they all knew it. The towering waves battered Dayas. She was thrown in all directions. That is one of the most terrible areas of the island because that's where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Indian Ocean. And I can tell you the experience of any pilot who has gone through that with a ship or boat, they will tell you that you never underestimate that area of Robben Island. Because it can crack the steel of anything, and you can all perish just there. The people on the top deck screamed their lungs out. The Atlantic Ocean was unforgiving. It tossed the Dayas up in the air, out of the water, parted the water into 2 sections, and opened a deep furrow in between, going down to the bottom of the sea. Angazi noma abanye bake baye experience lento le. Bobona amanzi olwandle avuleka enza kanje. Lapha phakathi nendawo la ubona ulwandle lapha la ifloor le. And isikebhe senu silapha phezulu. Uqabange ukuthi asekuya sengiyahamba vele. The Dayas did the dolphin dives, except that she did not have the same flexibility and agility. She was designed to float, not to dive. The waves continued to push her back hard into the emptiness and then cover her and keep her below the sea for seconds of utmost fright and horror and spit her out again, throw her on a flat spin before pushing her forward, then to the sides and the back, facing the direction which she came from. The prisoners vomited into the back. You know the paper bags that were used to put brown sugar in the shops in the olden days? They used to give us those as paper bags so that, because you have already eaten, I can speak about it, I think. Those who actually have experience going through the ship or boat, they know the seasickness. You actually can take everything out that you have eaten. So that's what used to happen. But for the prisoners, for the first time who had been there, they were given those bags. When they boarded, they were seasick and confused. The engines had been switched off because the captain thought that, in fact, to neutralize the anger of the waves, Dayas was at the mercy of the Atlantic Ocean and the Benguela current. Tons and tons of the steel were no match for the torrents of the waves. Police began to wonder whether it would have been easier to dive from the weight of the hangman's rope than face the prospect of ending up at the bottom of the sea. Can you imagine the choice between that and dying in the sea? Who knows, maybe in the belly of the sea, lion or the whale, not to mention an encounter with the white shark. It was a judgment day for him. He knew it was time to make peace with God. With one knee on the bench, he closed his eyes and said the simplest prayer that came to mind. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. He didn't know that everybody else was actually praying with him, because when he said amen, everybody said amen. When he opened his eyes, he heard everyone saying amen. With him and opening their eyes, he was praying for all of them, for Tim, who ordinarily dismissed the prayer as a gimmick. During the 3 weeks he spent at Liokop, about 3 other new prisoners had joined them. When the discordant cacophony of the waves and wind slowed down, they would hear the voices and saw the lighthouse in the middle of the sea, about a mile away. What was Robben Island?
Thank you.
The seagulls hovering above them welcomed them, and the birds excreted on Tim's head. Amangabangaba, avela kushaya ngesheko nje ufika eRobben Island. Kushuthi indlela ubingelela. The chains had been removed at the Robben Island dock. They marched in force to a prison in front of them. They were slowly recovering from the ordeal, and each one privately saying, "Thank you, Lord." They came to the island from the entrance front entrance and the door opened and a warrant officer who reminded police of his tormentors back in Pretoria Central Prison let them in. To the right was a door that led to the administrative block, and little further on the flight of stairs, going up the censor office. Then to the left was the famous B section where our leaders were. Abo Babu Mtopeng, Abo Babu Mandela, Labe Batalako, Abo Babu Sulu. Bebasetuzan in administration block, but B section. They talked about the prisoners kept in that section and looked forward to meeting them. One of them was coming to Robben Island for the second time. He served a talk as a tour guide and gave them information on what to expect. It was already late and the prison was closed and quiet. They were taken through the grill doors covered in solid steel. Eventually they came to C section, which was like a transit prison section. When you arrive in Robben Island, you are kept there, it's C section. That's where the observation is done, so that they can classify whether you can be sent to the general section, F section, or to B section. A long line, single cells were all opened and they were told to each pick a cell. But bangene ke bathola amakhulukutu indoda nendoda izozikhethela ikhulukutu layo la yolala khona. They wanted to stay in. They placed themselves and they were locked up for the night. That is it. Indlela ke lesa sigeda ngayo masifike eRobben Island. Akekho omunye futhi ophuma kule prison ongakutshela esinye story. Yiso njengoba uComrade uStakes asibekile. And unfortunately njengoba bengisho ngithi mina ayikho incwadi eke yabhalwa ngama prisoners ethengiswayo le prison. I hope this book will be one of them. And it will form part of the history that needs to be taught to our grandchildren and children to know about the Robben Island life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moyo.
Ngiyabonga sisi.
Oh, please don't go. It's still your moment to shine.
Okay. All right.
I like that you said that, it's good that it's written in the books of history, so our future generations get to know what actually happened. But I can't imagine there was ever a dull moment when you were there. Hey? What was the most memorable thing for you when you were on Robben Island?
The most memorable time for me was when we lost Stakes as the champions of the league. In Robben Island, we had the league, the league for football. And our team was leading like Kaizer Chiefs did. We were at the forefront. But because we chose the wrong coach, our coach was Terry Quarter. And we lost because he lost his temper and our goalkeeper, Mefi Morobe, left the goals and took out his shirt. And I had to go back as a defender, number 5, to take over as a goalkeeper. And Stakes and Tyson had to send 2 other middle field players to go and take over at the back. And I became a goalkeeper on that day because our manager left us. Terry Quarter was crying and he left.
What did I say? Do you think there was ever a dull moment with you around? Thank you so much, Mr. Moyo. Please take a seat. Sure. I think we laughed the most after that tonight, eh? Can we give him a round of applause, please? I'd like to welcome our band back onto stage because we are sweetening the mood. I see that the dessert has started to come out. Let's just dance a little bit. I'm sure we've had the second drink now. The mood is raising and we are still getting entertained. And then I will proceed. Can you hear me at the back? Hello, 1, 2. We'll proceed with the evening after this. Thank you for that jam. I'm still seeing so many of you sitting on your chairs after that song. Hey? Oh, that's why. Everyone has eaten, so it's hard to get up. But after that song, I was boogieing it down. It's a great song, and it's one that is also shared in the book with the memory. I'd like to proceed the evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little bit of your attention so we can close off tonight. I'd like to read you a short story. Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Thank you. I'd like to read you a short story. A group of tourists were visiting a crocodile farm, and they were in a floating structure in the middle of a crocodile lake. The owner of the farm shouted, "Whoever jumps into the water and swims to shore will receive $10 million. The silence was deafening. Suddenly, a man jumped into the water. He was chased by crocodiles, but with great luck, he was unharmed. The owner announced, "We have a winner." After receiving their reward, the man and his wife returned back to their hotel room. The man tells the wife, "I didn't jump into the water myself. Someone actually pushed me." His wife smiles and said coldly, "It was me." The moral of the story: behind every successful man, there is always a woman to give him a little push. I would like us to give a warm welcome onto stage to Mrs. Joy KHALA. Please join us.
Yes, I needed that. Thank you. Good evening, all good people. Dr. Maduna, you know there is only one reason that made me to hate for Vurt, and I still hate him up to now. Is because he deprived a black person of doing the most crucial subject in the world, which is mathematics. And he thought a black person is incapable of doing it, which is very wrong. We'll further our discussion. You know, I remember I was praying God to give me a man, but not just a man. I asked, to be honest, I asked for an intelligent man because I wasn't sure. Many of them were coming. So I wasn't sure, really, whom to choose and which motive they were having. But when he came, I looked at this guy because now I was just seeing a Tsotsi, to be honest. And then he was changing cars. I said, no, this is real, a ginza. Until I make my own investigation quietly, I said, but it's like there's something that he's doing, and whatever that he's doing for a living is like it's legit. I think maybe I should give him a chance. I think God gave me more. To be honest, I didn't know the author part. I was really surprised. We once had a trip, actually Mzala, it's his second book. We once had a trip with Bo Dr. Shai, yeah, our friends there at the table, Bomzwandile. We once had a trip together, and within days, he was done with the book. Little did we know that as we were free, you know, enjoying ourselves, the author-to-be was, you know, was really reading each and every move, intelligently so, and writing it here. Congratulations. I really congratulations are in order. I never thought that there is that expertise or that other talent, hidden talent of being an author. You know, but you know, Musi, it has got these disadvantages. I would be arriving on Fridays, and he would still be glued to this book. Then I would tell him, call him to order to say, no, you've got, from Monday to Thursday to do whatever that you want to do. You're writing, you're whatever, but come Friday, between Friday and Sunday night is my time. And until now, Mr. KHALA, please remember that. Between of course, as a spouse, you know, most you have to support your partner. You must try by everything that you can to support the partner. Imagine English. English for me, you know, my English is not that good, I think, because, you know, I'm a mathematician. So I was expected to, you know, to proofread the book. So for peace sake, I did that. I did everything that I could, to be honest. Ne? By the time I was done with the book, I've never seen my husband so excited. He was like an excited electron. I didn't tell him until today. I looked at him. You know, he was even acting his own writing, his own book, like, you know, doing actions like a good educator who's well prepared and budging in a classroom. I looked at him, you know, passionately so, then I realized that he really loves what he's doing. Congratulations again, Mr. KHALA. And sometimes I would wake up around 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. He knows, Musi, you know, I'm forever busy, maybe just like him, because I travel a lot. You won't believe it if I can tell you. I must tell you that around 12:30, I was still in Ogni. So part of 3/4 of my life, I spend it driving. So by that, Mr. KHALA, I wanted to say, when I arrive, don't be surprised that when I sleep like a baby. But I do all the duties, of course, that I'm supposed to be doing as a woman. And so as I woke up sometimes around 2, 3 a.m., I would check the bed and said, Where's my husband? Then when I check, I will see light coming out from the other room. He'll be glued to his books, writing. Sometimes he will stop a movie, and he will say, then I know. When he say, can I pause? Then I said, no. With pleasure. I know that he will go into study and noting something. That's the life that we've been living. I hope it's over. No, it's not over, actually. I don't mind it. I need more books so that, we can have, a man needs to live, Mr. KHALA, you are really, he's a man with many challenges. But today I only wanted to talk about this one of an author, which was really a surprise for me, and maybe a surprise for others too. I hope I did a good job because, for our subject, there is this illusion that London is too far for us. But I hope not. Ladies and gentlemen, by saying that you are a man of many challenges, please don't be big-headed. Just remain the way I know you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome not Master. You would remember why I'm changing the title. I hope so. Professor Sitembele KHALA to the podium. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Please go on.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether to start by acknowledging the very last speaker was extremely biased and very sentimental, or I should honor the person who's done a wonderful job throughout the night. My beautiful daughter, Sweli, a program director. Thank you for your kindness and thank you for your kind words. And thank you to my wife for your kind words. I didn't know you were so kind to me. This is a revelation. Thank you. When Antoinette Peterson took the stage, forgive me for calling you Peterson, that's how I remember you. On June 16th, 1976, when a young brother was shot, I was a student here at Orlando West High School. He was actually shot at the gate of my school when she was carrying her lifeless body to the police. We were marching with her, taking Hector to the police, but he was gone. And when she spoke this evening, I realized that in fact, those wounds are still very raw. They are very raw. Our history is not told, as many speakers have said. There are so many things that we don't know about ourselves There's so many things that we don't know about our country. I'll give you one simple example. In our midst today, we have Jakes. Call him Jakes. He's seated there. With due respect, I would ask him to stand. This man spent all his life with Oliver Tambo. Nobody knows him in this room. Nobody knows Oliver Tambo in this country than that man. And I've never heard him speak or being called to talk about Oliver Tambo in any memorial lecture or whatever you call it. But no man knows OR better than that old man. Sit down. Thank you for allowing me to abuse you. Thank you. So I'm just giving you an indication that there is so much that we don't know about ourselves and for ourselves. And that is why we don't even realize when we are losing our country again. Dan Moyo, who was standing here, my comrade, would tell you, and I will come back to some of the things he raised and remarked about. But before I do that, today is a very special evening for me personally. I share this evening with my friends, my colleagues, my leaders. I share this evening with my family. It is a special day for me. The journey to this final product has been a very long journey and often very bumpy. It has taken me about 12 to 18 months to put this book together. I just want to acknowledge and thank the people who contributed to the final product you see, titled Dancing with My Assassin. I want to make a special mention of one person in that journey, and that was my editor, or the editor of the book, the Honorable former Ambassador John Kwelane, JQ. Thank you. Now, I mentioned JQ because he is the most difficult person to work with. Those who know him know what I'm talking about. It was relatively easy to put the book together than to deal with JQ. He treated me like a dull Bantu education schoolboy. He marked my scripts with a red pen. And when they came back, they were just red. It was just red pen, red pen, red pen. And you know, sometimes when you use a computer, you would write something like a word like short, S-H-O-T, and the computer changes that to short, S-H-O-R-T. And you will not recognize it because even the spell check recognizes that word as an English word, so it passes. So you take the script, you take it to the editor. he circles it, he comes back, and he writes it again with a red pen. Short and short. Ati, do you know the difference? Of course I know the difference. JQ, yes, I do. But there was this one particular day, I sent a script to him. The script comes back, he has written in bold letters, "Why are you splitting an infinitive?" And I look at this thing, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. So I write back to him, "What infinitive did I split? Why don't you underline the infinitive that I split?" He writes back to me, "I'm not your English grammar teacher." Go and find your standard 6 graded English and do your correction. So I try, I'm looking for this infinitive. I don't even know what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for an infinitive. So I keep correcting things and I send back. He refuses to edit. He says, the infinitive is still split. And then finally I had to go and bother my mom, who's an old retired English teacher, to help me find infinitive. And together we identified the infinitive, corrected it, and sent the script back. Then the script was passed. I'm going to be very short. I just want to tell the reason very briefly of why this book was written. This book is a collection of stories, a brief synopsis of the struggles of the many unsung heroes and heroines who laid down their lives so that we could be a free people. This book is inspired by true stories, true events, true experiences, but it is presented in a fictional format. What do I mean by that? It is not possible to tell the stories of all, for example, ex-political prisoners, because there are so many of them. But then the story of ex-political prisoners is the same story. That story is so common amongst them. The way I was arrested is the same way Dan was arrested. The way I was kept under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act is the same way that Dan was kept under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act. We were kept incommunicado, meaning we were cut off from everything. We were cut off from our families. We were cut off from our lawyers. Even my lawyer could not see me. Nobody could see a prisoner held under Section 6 of the terrorism. Not even the court can intervene. No court can direct the police to either release a prisoner or make that prisoner available or grant the family the right to see that prisoner. So it's the same story. We all went through that. The torture, we all went through the same thing. Dan and I arrived on Robben Island when we were 17 years of age. And he says his greatest memory of the island is when terror abandoned us during the game. Mine is when we turned 21 with Dan. We celebrate our 21st birthday, and on that day, they gave us 2 slices of brown bread and honey as a gift for the 21st birthday, a celebration. That day we had bread, slice of bread, with honey. The courage of these unsung heroes, their sacrifices and their heroic determination gave us the priceless gift of freedom. It is often said, albeit in a casual manner, that South Africa's freedom came at a very high cost. This cost is measured in terms of lives lost and the many who disappeared without trace up to this day. Not even the Truth Commission has been able to tell us where many of our comrades disappeared to, what happened to them. And the Boers have steadfastly refused to release those statistics and release their names. What is often missed is how these icons were brutalized by the system of apartheid before it choked them. And as they say in Afrikaans, it het hulle weggegooi. Many were humiliated, tortured, maimed, and killed. We often forget the permanent scars and pain left with the families of the relatives. Antoinette can speak to that. Some of the history's many selfless heroes and heroines of our struggle, many of them no longer with us, whose sterling lives and examples made the freedom and the democracy possible, and also this book. Many others are mere statistics now, and their memory is expunged from history. We live in the hope they will not turn their backs on us and will remain our guiding light. Where their blood was spilled, flowers will blossom with a fresh scent and an aroma to take away the decaying and putrefying smell of death and destruction. May the souls of those departed rest in eternal peace. Colleagues, finally, J.W. Longafele says to these martyrs, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives subliminal. And departing, we will leave behind our footprints in the sands of time. In the sands of time. I would really appreciate your feedback once you have read the book. Please, let's get in contact and talk about these issues. Read the book and give us a feedback. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor. The moment is still yours, Professor. Yes, we are definitely going to. There was a part that you read there that I'd like us to just emphasize once more, is that our heroes gave us the greatest and priceless gift of freedom. Indeed, today we have authors, we have doctors, we have mathematicians, we have golf. Need I say more? One more thing, and we are black. Indeed, indeed. Black excellence has truly arrived. I'd love to open up the floor for a few questions, please, to our professor.